Hey guys, it's Richard. I'm here bringing you my updated Hexaorb Sorceress deck profile and just kind of showing off what I like about the new updates that came out in set 3. So let's go ahead and get started. Just go ahead and get the ride deck out of the way just because we all know how that works. Tri-Connect Sorceress, we're just going with this because, you know, it fits the aesthetic of the Maguses. Any of the Keter Secretary starters really work. Our grade 1 for our ride deck is Tier Square Sorceress. So what it does is when it's rode upon by Pentagleam Sorceress, you counterblast 1 and you draw a card. It has a rearguard skill that's when you drive check a trigger, you counterblast and put one of your opponent's front row rearguards to the bottom of the deck. So if you want to counter Virina in set 4, that's a way to do it. You can send those grade 4 Virinas back to the deck. But yeah, it's mostly, for right now, we're just using it for the ride deck. Grade 2 is Pentagleam Sorceress. Its first skill is when it's rode upon by Hexaorb, you look at top 3 cards of your deck, and you rearrange them in any order you want, and you put them back on the top of your deck. Second skill is when it's placed on the rearguard circle, if it's in your main deck. You look at the top card of your deck, and you can decide if you want to put it on the top or the bottom. If you put it on the bottom, it gets an extra 2k. So helps kind of manipulate your deck a little bit better to find triggers. And lastly, our main grade 3 of the deck is Hexaorb Sorceress. So it's Vanguard Circle. When your drive check reveals a trigger, you choose one of your other rear guards and it gets an extra 10k till the end of turn. So it's like getting 2 triggers for 1. The second skill is Act once returned. When you Persona Ride this turn, if you did, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and you pick up to 1 reveal up to 1 critical trigger or front trigger from your hand, put it on the top of your deck, and this unit gains triple drive. So even if you don't put a trigger back on top of your deck, you still keep the triple drive, which is really cool. And you know, more drive checks in a format where over triggers really kind of decide how the game's gonna go, it's really helpful. So that's basically it for the ride deck. We're gonna go on into the grade 3s. Starting off, we got 3 more copies of Hexaorb Sorceress because Persona Ride. You have to Persona Ride for the deck to work. So you need all 4 copies in the deck. So 3 in the main deck, your last one in your ride deck. Next up, for our grade 3s, I'm running 3 copies of a new card. This is Hexaorb Angels, came in set 3. Its skill is when this unit's placed on rearguard circle, you Soul Blast 1, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a unit card, you may call it to rearguard circle in the same column as this unit. You return it to its original spot if you do not call. So that's really important because this is another card that kind of helps you manipulate your deck. So call it Soul Blast 1, you look at the top card, not a trigger, call it to the same column, you know, just to kind of help you manipulate your triggers. And if you call a booster, you just get a booster, which is really cool. Just helping you fill your field, I was going to say your board, is really helpful. So I really like this card a lot as an update for Hexaorb. Ooh. Moving on to the grade 2s, we're running 4 copies of a new RRR, which is Magic of Objective Kakarone. Kakarone? What Kakarone's skill is when it's placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress or Pentagleam, so the grade 2, you Soul Blast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and you put them on the top of your deck in any order. So while it doesn't let you put anything on the bottom, it still lets you kind of rearrange how you want the top of your deck, so that let's say if there's a trigger on top of the second card as a normal unit, you could call Razor Rod, call the normal unit on, behind her, and then you know that the next card is going to be a trigger. So that's something like a simple combo you can do with her. Her second skill is if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress, this gets 2k power and 5k shield. So now you have a 10k shield in your hand. So that's also really helpful for the deck defensively. So really great card. Definitely running it at 4, having a lot of fun with this one. So now we're going on to the rest of our grade 2s. So this is a goodie but an oldie. It's Exquisite Knight Olwyn. So Olwyn's skill is when it's placed on rear, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb, you Soul Blast 1, look at 2 cards on the top of your deck, choose 2, and put them on the top of your deck in any order, and you put the rest on your bottom. So this one does let you manipulate the top 2 of your deck. But Kakarone still at least has the shield, so they kind of do the same thing for the most part. Just letting you kind of see what's going on with the top 2 of your deck. Second skill is when you drive check a trigger, you counterblast 1, you can give it an extra 10k. So it's if you want to, make this little beefy boy. All right. Next up, still 3 copies of Pentagleam Sorceress. You're running your 4th in your ride deck. So we already went over what it does, but I'll remind everyone it's just placed on rear. Top, look at top card of your deck, you put on the top or the bottom. If you put it on the bottom, it's +2. So it's for free. You put it down, look at top, bottom, you know, free card. Still good. And you're probably thinking that's a lot of Soul Blast going on in your grade 2 lineup. Well, not to worry. That's what Magic of Appreciation Nanaful is for. So its skill is when you drive check a trigger, you choose a card from your hand, you put it into your soul, and then you draw. So that is not once per turn, meaning that if you know that the top 3 cards of your deck are triggers, every time you get a trigger, you're gonna be able to put a card like a normal unit from your hand. So if you have grade 3s you don't want to call, put them in your soul, draw. You don't like what you drew, on the second trigger check, put it into your soul, draw. You just keep going. So Nanaful is a really great card, especially for Hexaorb, just because you're gonna guarantee that you can get your soul back. It's just a card that helps you fill your soul, so I don't feel like I need it more than 2, because once you see the 1, it's good. You did it. You got the card on the board. All right, so that was it for grade 2s. Now we're on to our grade 1s, starting with another new card, Magic of Revelation Sorceress. So what Sorceress skill is very simple. When it's placed on rear, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1, search deck for a Hexaorb Sorceress and add it to your hand. So for a deck that was super reliant on Persona Ride, we just got a searcher that searches Hexaorb. So it just makes the deck way more consistent. So it's a great card, and that's all it does. It's just on place. Vanguard's grade 3, search for Hexaorb. Easy. You would think there's some premium shenanigans that you could do with this, but then like Hexaorb can't really do much with, striding, because you have to stride in premium. But this is a great addition to the deck. I feel like 3 is fine. 4 was kind of like too clunky because after the 3, there's no more to search. So you only need 3 because there's only 3 in the main deck. That's the way I see it. Next up for grade 1s, still running 2 copies of Diaglass Sorceress. Used to run her at 4, but she's still really good. But with the counterblast going on with the deck, especially fighting for counterblast with Sorceress, we had to tone her down to 2. What she does is when it's placed on rear from hand, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb or Pentagleam, counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, look at top 2, and then you can choose to either call both, call 1 and put the rest on the top of your deck, or you could just leave both on the top of your deck. So if the top 2 are triggers, leave them on top. If the top 2 are normal units, call them to your board. If one's a normal and one's a trigger, call 1, put the other on the top of your deck. Super good for deck manipulation in this deck. So Diaglass is still a really great card for the deck. If you want to drop Sorceress down to 2 and run another Diaglass, that's something you can do as well. But I'm liking Diaglass at the 2 where it is right now. And lastly, I'm keeping Painkiller Angel just because it's a really good booster. Still being able to get this off early, throw it down, boost with it just to push. Then you Soul Blast, retire it, and you draw more cards, so you can kind of keep searching for a Hexaorb. Still a really good addition to the deck. You do have to, again, be mindful of the Soul Blast, because you have like already 10 cards in the deck, or including Hexaorb, you have 13 cards in your main deck that Soul Blast and are really good. So you gotta kind of decide what you're gonna do with that. But of course, you have Nanaful once you get it out to kind of help you replenish your soul. So love Painkiller, still a really good early game card. And lastly, grade 1s, you gotta run your PGs. So we got the 4 Aegis-Mare Dragons. It's the one where if you have 2 or more in your hand, you have to discard a card, but if you got 1 or less, the PG is free. So gotta run the better PG. So now we're on to triggers. That was fast. It's the guy. It's our Martinoa. It's the over trigger that its additional effect is when you over trigger it, your rear guards now perform drive checks, which means that if you have, air Razor Rod on the rear guard circle, now you have Twin Drive on your rear guard. So this is still really good. Our Martinoa, obviously, just because more drive checks, more filling your hand. Obviously, the more drive checks you get, you get to use those effects with Hexaorb. So like if your rear guard attacks and you get a trigger, Hexaorb effect activates and you can apply that trigger to 2 units, or the power at least. So this is still the go-to over trigger for pretty much every Keter Sanctuary deck in Standard. So then going on to triggers, we got a new critical trigger with skills. So Blade Feather Dragon, another way to help you fill your soul. It's at the end of the battle, this boosted, you put this into your soul, choose one of your units that gets an extra 2k. So it can help you fix numbers, so you can hit those magic numbers, like in the 13, 18, 23 range. And then also, you know, fills your soul. So why not? It's a crit. And you gotta run crits for Hexaorb skill, so you run the crit with the skill. All right, we're finishing off with 7 crit. Instead of running draws, just because we don't want to deck out, and also the deck is more crit and front trigger reliant, so being able to kind of pressure your opponent with the critical triggers, and let's say you're scrying through your deck and you just see 3 critical triggers like this sitting on the top of your deck, you're gonna want to push with that. So run crits in the Hexaorb deck. It's good, I promise. We also run fronts because Hexaorb skill works with fronts as well. So this is the front from DBTO2. It's the one where when it's placed on the guard circle, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this gets an extra 5k shield. So extra shield's always helpful, and it's a front for Hexaorb, so still helpful. And lastly, of course, you guessed it, 4 heal triggers, because heal triggers help you stay in the game. You know, and you can run only 4, so might as well be aggro about it, right? Max out the 4 heal triggers. So that was it for the main deck. All I can really say is I haven't played too many games with this, but in those games that I have played with this deck, it is really fun just to be able to kind of manipulate your deck and kind of see what's going on. From my personal experience, I would say if you had to pick the choice, because this is my dilemma, between these 3 on what you're gonna do first, let me get them kind of more in view. So if you're trying to decide what to do between these 3, I would say always go Diaglass first, just because Diaglass helps you fill your board, and you never know, your Diaglass might help you search into a Cockroan and get you the Cockroan you were going to play anyways. So Diaglass first, and then after that it's kind of in between what you want to do with these 2. Allwin is obviously better just because it lets you put stuff back on the bottom, but if you want to just kind of like see what's going on with the top 2, just because if you're like, I know what the next card on the top of the deck is, I just need to know what the one below it is, you can have Cockroan to kind of help you back up there if you don't have another Allwin. But obviously Cockroan is really good in your hand, so if you can kind of stay with just keeping it in your hand for the most part, I would say Cockroan is more like an emergency Allwin, like if you need to know what the next card's going to be, because that extra shield does matter. It does make a difference. So that's pretty much it for the deck profile. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you guys think of what type of D-Series decks you want to be seeing in the near future, so we can kind of get an idea of what you guys are looking forward to. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.